Welcome back to the Peach Teach English podcast. Today, Jessica Treanor joins me to talk all about New York. I recommend that you watch this episode on my Substack so you can see all the beautiful images of the geography, tourist attractions, food, and more. Thank you for joining us today. If you don't know me, my name is Frankie Mesmer. I'm from Savannah, Georgia, USA, and now I live in Columbia, and I am an English teacher. And Jessica is joining me today. She is from New York, and she's going to talk about her beautiful New York State. But first, let's have her introduce herself. Can you do that, please, Jessica?
Hi, everybody. I'm Jessica from 56 Rising Stars Tutoring. Like Frankie said, I'm here to talk about New York State. And thank you to Frankie for hosting this and helping me out with various things. And thank you all for joining too. So this is New York State, and I've lived in New York State my whole life, various regions of New York State, but basically the eastern part of upstate New York. So in New York State, most people think, when you say New York, most people think of New York City, which obviously is a huge attraction, but we have so much more in New York as well. So that's what this presentation is all about, all the different parts of New York State and some of the things that if you ever come visit, you might want to see. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the different regions, the climate, which is really variable. So we definitely have all four seasons here. Just some landscape and geography things, like we have a lot of mountains and valleys and lakes and all sorts of things. And then some things that relate to culture and places you might want to come see. So there we have New York City. Of course, there's the Statue of Liberty. In general, people divide New York State into upstate and downstate. And there is a lot of debate about where upstate starts. Downstate is basically like Westchester and New York City and Long Island. But then some people say upstate doesn't start till you get farther north. But in my opinion, upstate is pretty much anything above the city. So there's the city in Long Island. And then when I say upstate, I'm referring to all these regions here. And I live in the capital Saratoga region. I've also lived in this region here, central New York. I've definitely been to the Adirondacks. I've been to most every region except for this one way out here out west. But it's really a beautiful state with a lot to offer. And
So
slide.
Jessica, is that how
Oh,
you pronounce it? Adirondacks? Because when I was
oh
reading it, I
yeah.
wasn't sure how that would be pronounced.
Yep, that's definitely how you pronounce it. And it's a big attraction around here. It's really beautiful. Just the landscape and everything, and the fact that there are so many lakes and so many mountains and things like that. In the summer, it's very, very green. We get a lot of foliage in the fall. Depending on where you are in New York State, we get a lot of cold weather and generally a lot of snow. Last winter, we didn't get much snow, but in general, we get pretty harsh winters. Where you are in New York State depends on how harsh the winters are. Like I hear out in Buffalo, they're particularly bad. A lot of snow in Buffalo. Places like Syracuse, which is in central New York, tend to get a lot of snow. We get a fair amount here too. So I would say if I had to sum it up, I would say winter is probably our longest season here. Then we have spring, which tends to be a short season. Sometimes we get snowstorms in the spring once in a while. Then we have nice summers, but they're not very long. I would say real summer weather doesn't last more than like 8 weeks. And then we're back into the fall, which is my favorite season.
Mine
And
too.
yours too. Yes. Has anybody been to New York?
So I've been to New York City and probably some areas around it. I actually think when I visited New York, I got a hotel in New Jersey and
Oh,
crossed
really?
over. Yes, because it was cheaper, the hotels on the New Jersey side. I was like 19 years old. I
Oh.
took a road trip with my friends and we planned it last minute. I think it was like 1 or 2 weeks before we were like, let's drive up to New York for New Year's. We went for
Oh,
New
really?
Year's to
Oh, that's
watch the
fun.
ball drop.
Yeah, there's so many things that go on in New York City. Just such a variety. Yeah, and Frankie was saying New Jersey, like if you go downstate to New York City, you're very close to New Jersey. We're also bordered by Connecticut, Massachusetts, and Vermont and Pennsylvania. Where I live is fairly close to Massachusetts and Vermont. I just went to Vermont this past weekend. I would say a little more than an hour from both Massachusetts and Vermont. So we're also bordered by Lake Erie and Lake Ontario. We have the Adirondack Mountains, we have the Catskills. Finger Lakes region is really beautiful, which is in sort of the central part of New York.
And Jessica, what would you say is your favorite region?
My favorite region is the one where I live right now, the Saratoga region. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Saratoga. It's like a little resort city in eastern New York. And during the summer, it gets really busy. They're known for horse racing, the Saratoga racetrack. It's just a really cool little city. It's very artsy. There's a lot of cool like boutiques and really nice restaurants. It does get busy in the summer because it's a tourist destination, but it's known for health, history, and horses. They have a lot of spas, a lot of history, obviously. There's the Battle of Saratoga that took place there. We have Saratoga State Park back, which is Saratoga Performing Arts Center. So there's lots of concerts and cultural things that go on there. So the Saratoga region is my personal favorite.
Which is why you live there. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, I also really like New York City, but I don't get down there too much. There's just so much to see there. So
how long is the drive from Saratoga to New York City?
I would say 3 to 4 hours from New York City going south. If you go north 3 to 4 hours, you go to Montreal. If you go east 3 to 4 hours, you wind up in Boston. And if you go west, you could get to like Niagara Falls, and I'm guessing like 4 hours or so. So
it's a good location.
Yeah, centrally located. You can get to a lot of various other places from here as well. They do say Saratoga is where they invented, or not invented, where they created the potato chip. So that's just a little fun fact. Here in upstate,
chip.
Yes,
cool.
Potato chips. Upstate New York, it's kind of known for having tons of Stewart's shops, especially the eastern part of New York. I don't know if you're familiar with Stewart's shops, but there's these little convenience stores and they're just like all over the place. I hear that there are some in southwestern Vermont and northwestern Massachusetts as well, but like I would say you can't go more than 10 minutes without running into a Stewart's shop around here. So
and that's from Saratoga, the Stewart shops.
They originated in Ballston Spa, which is about 10 minutes from where I live. And they're all over the place here. I don't think that they're in Western New York, or they stop somewhere along Central New York, but Eastern New York, but everybody knows Stewart shops because they're just all over the place. So that's one little thing.
Nice.
Oh, I just wanted to share the variety. So we have the city, obviously, but we also have like a lot of suburban areas. There's a lot of rural areas, farming, things like agriculture. There's a lot of like apples and things in New York. So just showing you some of the different regions. Niagara Falls, I'm sure you've heard of that. We have the Hudson River. We have a lot of really beautiful lakes. So places of interest and culture. Of course, there's New York City with things like the Empire State Building, Rockefeller Center, the Chrysler Building, Times Square, the 9/11 Museum, the Statue of Liberty. That's New York City. And I mean, you could go on forever just about New York City itself. There's also places like Niagara Falls, the Finger Lakes region, the Adirondacks, Long Island, Lake Placid, where they had the Olympics a couple times. A really beautiful area too. And then I just wrote a little bit about the Saratoga region, which is where I live. And their little slogan is health, horses, and history. I put spas and an active art scene as well. Lots of nice restaurants, cafes, interesting boutiques.
Nice. And Jessica, what's your favorite attraction in New York City?
I love Times Square. I love the Chrysler Building. I've been to like Broadway plays and things like that. What about you? You said you've been to New York City.
I'm a nature person, so I like Central Park. Central Park's really beautiful. And I was there in December. It just had a really Christmassy, beautiful feel there in Central Park. Ice skating going on and
Rockefeller Center at Christmas time. They have Radio City Music Hall and the Rockettes and everything. They have the huge Christmas tree, the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade. So, yeah.
Thanksgiving is coming up very soon. What is the Macy's Thanksgiving Parade all about?
Oh, it's huge. I just watch it on television, but it's just massive. It just goes on and on and on. It's really impressive. It's one of those things that if you want to catch it on television on Thanksgiving Day, I'm sure you could do that. It's pretty spectacular. It's one of those things you kind of have to see for yourself. But
Yeah,
yes.
like all the big floats are impressive and they have the big balloons.
Oh yeah. So I've never actually been down there for Thanksgiving, but I have been down to New York around Christmas time, and it's amazing. It's beautiful. So if you can go in at a time when there's not too much snow and have time to look around, the tree is beautiful, and people go skating around Rockefeller Center and all of that. And if you've seen the movie Elf, I don't know if you've seen the movie Elf, but
I've seen
they
Elf
show,
many
yeah,
times.
they show it in that movie. So that some people call it New York City like a microcosm of the world because there's so many different cultures represented there. Some people love it there, and then other people say it's just way too crowded for them. It really depends on your personal preference, whether you're a city person or a person who really isn't into that kind of thing. But there's so much culture there. I kind of think it's one of those places you have to go at least once in your life. I have had people tell me that New York City just wasn't for them. It was just too much. But, you
No,
know,
I think New York City's a great place for tourism for me. Like I think it's nice to visit. I think it would be too much for me to live there because I'm not so much a big city girl, but to see all the like just the big city and the culture, it's a wonderful experience. And I do think everyone should live that experience if they can. New York.
so then I was just talking a little bit about some different activities in New York, some sightseeing. Some people like to go hiking. You know, we have the Adirondack Mountains. A lot of people go boating, skiing, like horse racing in the summer. In the fall, a lot of people do like apple picking. We have a very distinct fall here in New York. There's a lot of pumpkin picking and pumpkin decorating and things with like pumpkin spice. And people like to take drives and look at the leaves, which were really pretty this year. We had a really nice fall this year. Oh, fairs. We have the state fair in August, which is in Syracuse. So that's a big attraction. I've been to that as well.
The New York State Fair in Syracuse.
Well, I have an interesting fact about Syracuse.
Oh, you do?
Frankie's family is from Syracuse.
Oh, they are?
I didn't know.
Did you know that?
Yeah, her father's family came from Syracuse.
Wow.
A long time ago.
Did you know that, Frankie?
Nope. New information for me.
One of her grandfathers went to visit his sister in the hops fields and drowned in Lake Erie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So you have a connection, Frankie.
Yes, we do.
Yeah. From New York. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me though. If we look at the history, lots of immigrants came to Ellis Island and that was the place to immigrate. Thanks, Mom, for that fun fact.
The population of New York State is just under 20 million, and more than 8 million of those people live in New York City, which is around 300 square miles itself. And there's always a debate about what's upstate and what's downstate. Some people will say that upstate doesn't really start until you get to like the Adirondacks or the North Country. Other people say that upstate is pretty much anything above the city. And that's really the way I look at it as well. Some people have said that just culturally, upstate and downstate are so different that some people have suggested that they should be different states. I'm not going to comment on that, but there is that discussion sometimes. Upstate and downstate New York are two very distinct regions. And, the capital is Albany. Some people who aren't too familiar with New York might think the capital is New York City, but the capital is actually Albany. We have a lot of Native American and Dutch heritage around here. Oh, and then a little bit about Saratoga. We have the National Museum of Dance in Saratoga. Saratoga Springs is widely known for horse racing, but we also have the Saratoga Performing Arts Center, which is we call it SPAC. The New York City Ballet performs at SPAC in the summer. Lots of concerts are hosted at SPAC. And the Saratoga State Park itself is really beautiful. I also wanted to mention the region where I live, we have Proctor's Theater, lots of plays and musicals and things like that are put on there. We have a science museum. There's the Strong Museum of Play in Rochester, which is a huge attraction, especially for kids. Really, I think it's a beautiful state. I would say sometimes the climate can be a little bit harsh, but once you get used to that, it's where I've been my whole life. And I just really think it's a great place to visit if you haven't visited. And there's something for everyone, really. So if you like the city, you can definitely take advantage of New York City. And then there's so many other beautiful parts of it too.
Your sister and I flew to New York for the day for her birthday and went shopping on Fifth Avenue. So there's a lot of good shopping in New York City. And Central Park is amazing. I just wish I'd have taken the horse and buggy ride around it.
Yes, I absolutely love Central Park too. And yes, New York is a great option for shopping, 100%. Mom, when did you go? In February?
Yes, we went in February. It was cold, but it was fun.
I've actually been to New York twice, but one time was just to leave on a cruise. So we just stayed overnight at my uncle's house, and then we got on the cruise ship the next day. But like I mentioned, I went in December and it did start snowing on the last day I was there. But it was nice to see New York City in snow. It was a good
it is very
experience too.
pretty.
Shahir.
Yes, so for that, in New York City, when I see the movies or series in English, it's very famous, NYC. They always film all across in the movies for Manhattan or Brooklyn and Queens. Queens is here, and this is Brooklyn, then Manhattan. Times Square is very beautiful during the evening. It's in Manhattan.
There's lots of famous movies, TV series filmed in New York City. Yeah.
They always film always there. Staten Island's there. I've been there like 5 years ago. I visited there. Times Square, Staten Island Ferry, Statue of Liberty,
Oh,
Hudson
you
River.
went? Did you go, Shahir?
Yeah, 5 years ago, 2019. I visited there only once.
Okay, and what did
that's
you
great.
think? Tell us, what was your
It was
experience?
fantastic. It was very good, but it's heavy traffic. Times Square is so beautiful during the evening. Staten Island Ferry, World Trade Center, Empire State Building, all of the skyscrapers. It's very big.
Yes.
New York.
Yes.
And shopping, tourists from different countries, mainly from Europe.
There's a lot of tourists for sure too. We can have a little discussion here. Would you be more interested in visiting New York City or some of the more rural hiking areas?
I'm more of nature person, but I do like once in a while that shopping and city kind of thing, like just for a while. But I love nature.
Yeah, I think it'd be nice, like you can fly into New York City, see the main
Yeah.
attractions, and then you
Action,
can
yes.
go enjoy some hiking somewhere. Jessica, would you recommend any specific park to go hiking in New York State?
To go hiking, I would recommend, so many people love the Adirondacks. I'm not a big hiker myself, but I think it's really pretty. Some people make it like a goal that they have to hike all of the peaks in the Adirondacks. And there's other mountain ranges as well. We have the Catskills, which are a little further south, but definitely if you're into hiking, I would recommend the
Adirondacks. Yes.
Yep, Adirondacks. It didn't really occur to me that people wouldn't know how to pronounce that. I'm just so familiar with, I guess I'm just so used to it here. I've been here so long that.
Yeah, it's your home for sure. Hello, Juan.
Hello, good morning.
We're happy you could join us.
I have a question. What does New York contribute to the world culture?
Oh, there's a lot. If you're talking about New York City specifically, it's rich in history, and there's like the Metropolitan Museum of Art. There's all sorts of famous buildings in New York City. Ellis Island, so many people came to New York through Ellis Island. So we have so many different cultures represented in New York. I could just go on and on, and then there's all of upstate New York as well, which the culture of upstate New York tends to be different than the culture of the city. But like I was mentioning before, there are so many different cultural aspects. Like just in Saratoga, we have the Saratoga Performing Arts Center. We have different museums, like the Strong Museum in Rochester, just various things like Niagara Falls. People come from different parts of the world to see Niagara Falls. So there's just so much. Did you want to add anything, Frankie?
New York is the home of hip hop
Oh,
music.
all the different types of foods in New York City.
Maybe I could share some of that. So we have some more details about New York. This is the location of New York on the map. And then you can see here a close-up with the bordering states. And so New York will also share a border with Canada and two of the Great Lakes. Looking at some of the different regions, you can see we have Niagara Falls and Buffalo. This is a waterfall, and this is Rochester City. This is in the Southern Tier region. Now, this is Binghamton. Is that the correct pronunciation, Jessica?
Oh, that's Binghamton. That's down closer to
Binghamton.
Pennsylvania.
Here we can see Cooperstown, New York, and Syracuse.
Cooperstown, they have the National Baseball Hall of Fame. They have the Farmers Museum in Cooperstown. It's a really nice little village to visit, especially in the summer.
Yeah, and then these are the Adirondacks Mountains where we could go hiking, and Lake Champlain.
Yes, Lake Champlain.
And then we have, is it Utica?
Yep, Utica's how you say it.
Utica and Mohawk River, which you were telling me about the Utica greens, no?
Oh yeah, there's some different regional foods. There's the Half Moon cookies.
What are Utica greens, Jessica? Could you explain this dish for us?
I have not eaten Utica greens. No. I've heard people mention them, but no, I have not had those.
So maybe it's collard greens with like some bread crumbs and some other ingredients.
Yeah.
It looks good.
It does look good.
Because in my region, we like to eat turnip greens with cornbread. Have you tried that?
Well, I haven't had turnip greens, but I've definitely had cornbread.
You dip the bread in it. We like this dish very much back home. When I visit my family, now that I live in Colombia, when I go back home and visit them, I always try to get some turnip greens and cornbread. I like it very much. The Utica greens there. And then this would be the capital, guys, Albany.
Albany, yep.
And Saratoga Springs, where Jessica lives and is from, right?
Yeah, well, I grew up in the Mohawk Valley, which is just a little bit west, but yeah, I live outside of Saratoga Springs.
And then we have the Hudson Valley, so you can see the Mid-Hudson Bridge here in Kingston, New York. And then finally, the famous New York City. So we have Times Square here and the Staten Island Ferry. Jessica, do you know anything about Staten Island?
I do know a little bit. So when we talk about New York City, there are 5 boroughs. So there's Manhattan, there's Staten Island, Queens, the Bronx, Brooklyn. So, I mean, I've been to Staten Island, yes. And in New York City, they're all very distinct boroughs. So when people think of New York City, a lot of people tend to think of Manhattan, which is where you see like a lot of the skyscrapers, but there are those other boroughs as well. And Staten Island is one of them.
Thank you very much. And then finally, we have Long Island here. So this is the lighthouse. And I was doing some research. So technically, Queens is part of Long Island. Do you know?
I believe so, yeah. Long Island. So I've been to Long Island. It's like the part that's closest to the city is very populated, or at least when I visited, or that's what I experienced when I visited. Very populated, very like densely suburban. And then I think as you go out further east, like toward the shore, it's less populated. That's a very distinct culture as well, because those people who live on Long Island tend to go to the city a lot. And so they're very, well, I don't want to speak for all of them. Of course, I don't know, but they probably are more familiar with the city than people who are living more upstate because they're so much closer.
Yes. And I imagine a lot of people commute into the city every day too for work.
Yeah. A lot of people commute from New Jersey to the city for work as well.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. We did talk about New York City a lot, right? It's the city that never sleeps, also known as the Big Apple, lots of nicknames there. And then, of course, Niagara Falls. Has anyone here been to Niagara Falls? Shahir, did you visit Niagara Falls?
Yeah, Frankie, I visited there also, like from New York to Buffalo. You have
Okay.
seen it, it's very beautiful. It's between US and Canada border. This is the US and Canada upper side. This is called Mississauga, Toronto.
Yep.
Like overlaid rainbows, like Canada skyscrapers and New York, like that.
Wow, so
Like in
you've seen a
Southeast,
lot of New York. I think you've seen more of New York than I have. So Shahir, you've been to Buffalo and you've been to New York City. Which city did you like more?
both, but I like New York City the most because it's very famous.
There's a lot to do in New York City. Finally, we were talking about the Adirondack Mountains here, so we can see it in the winter and in the summer, the different views. Do you guys know anything about the history of New York? Does anybody have any history information of New York?
I don't have, but what I always heard about the whole of America, they were actually populated by the Europeans. They were American natives before there, and they took over and things like that. So it must be the European settlers who settled there.
Yes, for
That's
sure.
what I
That
think.
the original people that were in New York, the Native Americans before the colonists came, 100%. Shahir,
Yeah, I think I know about New York, Frankie. So it was, I think, mostly from the Europe. They were colonized with it. First with the Dutch, with the Netherlands. All of the Europeans, they inherited from different cultures, like mainly from Europe, like from the Netherlands first.
an Italian man, Giovanni, reached New York first, but he was not the first to actually create the colony. That was the Dutch.
Yep. It used to be
Later,
called New Netherlands.
Yes, exactly. New Netherland was the original name, like Jessica said there. New York City used to be New Amsterdam, right? So it wasn't actually a British colony in the beginning.
I remember the first European settlers were Dutch merchants who established trading colonies in the early in 17th centuries. Their main town in New Amsterdam was founded on the seat of present-day New York City during the Second Anglo-Dutch War. The English force captured to the town, remaining it New York in this moment. The city was an important strategic player in the Revolutionary War in the New York-based Sons of Liberty.
Exactly. New York was the 11th of the 13 original colonies. Yeah. I'm from Georgia, which was number 13. We were the last colony before independence. Yeah. Jessica, is there anything about history you'd like to add?
I was just going to highlight that, yeah, we have a lot of Dutch heritage and also a lot of Native American heritage. Like a lot of place names around here are, you can see the Dutch influence in the place names and the architecture, as well as Native American. So there's a lot of Native American place names, and the impact that they've had on the culture is really noticeable as well.
Yeah, it said there's the Iroquois and the Algonquin tribes that were popular in the New York region. And actually, American democracy was influenced by the Iroquois in their Confederation of Nations. So they did have an influence on American culture in that way.
Yeah, there's a school around here, a middle school. One of their middle schools is called Iroquois Middle School.
Okay. So the pronunciation's Iroquois.
Iroquois, yep.
Thank you. Do you guys know any food that comes from New York? Yes, you're correct. Buffalo wings. Okay, that's why they're buffalo wings coming from Buffalo, New York.
In the Middle East, it's called wild wings. Over there in the GCC, people always eat buffalo wings, just like people in the US do.
There's a famous restaurant called Wild Wings.
That's
why. Generally, we like to eat buffalo wings with celery sticks, carrot sticks, and blue cheese dressing or ranch dressing. Jessica, are you a ranch or a blue cheese girl? Or neither?
I like blue cheese. But so many people, I know so many people who prefer ranch, but I go with blue cheese.
I like both, but I think I'm a little more ranch person. Yeah.
But I do love buffalo wings, yes.
Yeah. And of course, New York City is famous for their pizza, which you can easily fold. Very, very delicious. Also, the bagel originated from New York, specifically from the influence of Jewish immigrants. So the bagel is a common breakfast food. Jessica, do you like bagels?
I do. I love bagels.
What's your preferred way of eating a bagel?
I love them toasted with cream cheese.
Classic.
Especially, I like everything bagels. Yep.
Everything bagels are good. Yeah.
They're everything.
I like a good cinnamon raisin bagel with some cream cheese.
Oh, those are good too. I like those with butter.
It's good with butter too. Well, Jessica, I want you to talk about the next one here because I'm not so familiar with the garbage plates.
So garbage plates, I'm in Eastern New York and they're more of a Western New York, like more maybe like Rochester thing. So I recall having one. It was a long time ago though, but I believe they put like hamburger and a bunch of, I think there's a lot of different ways you can make them. I think they're sold at a lot of like restaurants and things out in Western New York. So I've only had one in my life.
Is this like a bar food?
I would say they sell them mainly at like restaurants and you go out to eat and it's very common that it would be on the menu at a restaurant.
It said here generally it's a mix of meat, maybe burgers, hot dogs, a macaroni salad, home fries, a meat sauce. Yeah. It looks delicious, but like a lot of calories.
Yeah, it looks very heavy, but it looks good.
But this is from, a Rochester original garbage plates there. I'll have to try one day. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping up here. So does anybody have any questions about New York or want to share anything else about New York?
Yeah. What about your opinion? New York is central of business. For example, Wall Street.
You want to go first, Jessica?
Wall Street is center of business?
Yes.
I definitely think it is if you're into like stocks and that sort of thing. But yeah, definitely an economic center of the world. Would you agree, Frankie?
Yes, Wall Street is globally famous and recognized for this, and the stocks, like you mentioned. Yes, definitely an important place economically speaking. Shahid wants to.
I've heard Wall Street, I read about it always. It's all about economics, about buying and selling of shares. It's a financial center in New York. New York is a business and finance hub.
Tell us about the Broadway.
Yes, I've been to Broadway plays. Yeah, they're known, I would say, worldwide. So if you like theater and the arts and you're able to see a Broadway play, I would definitely recommend it. The most recent one I saw, Dear Evan Hansen. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. I've seen Cats, but it's really spectacular. So if you're into theater, definitely try to catch a Broadway play sometime. New York City is just like a hub. For so many things, for culture, for finance, for different types of food. We could do a whole presentation just on New York City alone, but
I agree. There's so much going on in New York. That's why there's so many people there. There's something for everyone.
Yeah.
In New York City. Yes.
Why New York was called the Big Apple?
Well, our state fruit is the apple. So I think that New York City is obviously the big city in New York. So it's just referred to as the Big Apple. So our state is called the Apple State. It's our state fruit.
I am sorry that I couldn't heard about the Liberty Statue. So can you tell who made it or who gifted it to US?
The Statue of Liberty. It was a gift from the French. And
That's what I thought.
And I think it's a symbol of obviously liberty, peace, and things like that.
But definitely a symbol of peace and welcoming immigrants into our country?
Great question, Talat. The Statue of Liberty is the symbol of New York City. Very important there. We're going to go ahead and wrap up here. So, Jessica, would you like to share about your business a little bit before we go?
Yes, so I am a reading tutor. So I'm specializing in 5th and 6th grade, but I can help others as well. I'm also developing a course to help high schoolers with the SAT. So I specialize in reading and reading comprehension, and my business is called 56 Rising Stars.
What social media are you on?
And I'm on LinkedIn. I'm Jessica Treanor. I want to thank everybody for joining today too, and I want to thank Frankie. She has been so helpful and such a good resource.
No, thank you for joining me. I'm so happy you agreed to do this with me today.
If I can help you with anything, please let me know.
To finish up here, so you saw during the presentation, I was using the blog post that I wrote about New York. You can read the blog and subscribe so you get more information about the next events coming up. We're going to go ahead and say goodbye here for today. Please follow Jessica on social media. See you at the next event. Bye.